Yeah.
The vehicle, I mean, you're waiting for the next one.
By the time I got
You can always go back.
Hey everyone.
Back in there.
Hi everyone. Sorry to
Hi, Abby.
interrupt conversation.
I'm an expert in.
Hi everyone. Thanks for those of you who are on the call. Why don't we start off actually by there we go. Why don't we start off by starting on the phone, going around, introducing yourself, your name and your organization, and then we'll introduce everyone around the table here at the Y. Galen, do you want to start?
Go ahead.
Yes, I can start. I'm Galen Mack. I'm with the Big Buddy program in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Welcome.
Hi, afternoon. This is Shaquita Ogletree with Child Welfare League of America, headquartered in D.C.
Awesome. Welcome. I know there's a few others on the phone. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Patricia Artie with the U.S. Soccer Foundation based in Washington, D.C.
Patricia.
Kristen Trupa with Youth Collaboratory.
Welcome. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Nina Lovelace from National 4-H Council.
Hi, Nina.
Hi.
Anyone else want to introduce themselves? All right. Great. Why don't we go around the table? I'm Abby Evans from Mentor. Thanks for joining all of us.
Jim Bradley from NRPA.
Elena Rocha, YMCA of the USA.
Chris Fisher, representing Youth Collab.
Stephanie Coles with College Mentors for Kids.
Dave Slaren with Boys and Girls Clubs of America.
Maggie Gallagher, After School All Stars.
Sam Chasen, also with the YMCA.
Lauren Hernandez of Girls Inc.
Hannah Salazar, also of Girls Inc.
Juliana Ojeda with Mentors.
Adrian Alisea with Mentor.
Thanks everyone for getting together. This is Juliana's first coalition meeting. She's our summer intern, so we're very happy to have her with us. So yeah, thanks everyone for getting together. We started this in-person summer gathering last year just because I thought there's so many of us who are in the greater DC area. I know it's a bit exclusionary for the rest of you who aren't in the DC area, but it just made a lot of sense for me, you know, at least once to try to get everyone around a table to kind of update each other and share our interest in youth mentoring and a few other youth development issues. So the agenda today, admittedly, is a little more about discussion than learning and sharing, although I want to do a lot of that as well. The two main things I really wanted to, or the one main thing I really want to get some feedback and have a little dialogue with all of you about is discussion about each of your organization's policy or issue-related priorities. I wanted to find out, you know, I think all of us have this shared interest in the OGJDP Youth Mentoring grants that will continue to be the priority focus for this coalition. There are other mentoring related bills that I would love to know what you guys are tracking or are benefiting from or hoping to benefit from in the future. Tiffany Miller from Communities and Schools is here. She just chatted her hello to all of you. So yeah, I just really wanted to get some insight from you on what you're already tracking and what some of your priorities are, and then maybe some things that this coalition could keep an eye on. I'll talk a little bit when we get to that slide about some of the things I was thinking about and would love some feedback from all of you on. I threw in an agenda item here that is totally self-serving. I think most of you know at the National Mentoring Summit in January, we hold what we very uncreatively call the National Orgs Meeting. It's really this meeting in person at the summit. And the last probably 3 or 4 years, it's had a very legislative focus, which we're happy to continue. But I wanted to hear from all of you if there are topics you guys would love to discuss together, if we could get speakers in, or if there's certain offices or members of Congress you would love to hear from, or if you have interest in, I don't know, hearing from campaigns, whatever. I would just love to hear from you guys a wish list of things you might want to discuss. And then we can do a quick legislative update. I'm hoping some of you around the table have some items to share. And then, as always, I left time on the agenda to hear from all of you and some of the stuff you guys are working on as individual orgs. And then any Q&A from there. And it looks like Amanda from College Mentors has also joined us, so she's on the call. If I missed anyone else, please feel free to speak up. But thanks for all of you on the call for joining. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So yeah, I mean, I think I was just trying this morning as I was putting the slide together to be a bit exhaustive, and clearly I wasn't, because there's a lot of question marks on that screen. These are the ones that just sort of like immediately jump to mind. I know some of you have some other issues, particularly under Labor H, that are probably additional priorities for you as well. And for those of you, I apologize, for those of you who aren't DC WAGs, I lumped these by appropriations subcommittee. So the first is the Labor, Health and Human Services, Education and Related Agencies subcommittee, the DOD subcommittee, that's I think self-explanatory, Department of Defense, the Ag subcommittee, Transportation HUD, State, and the Commerce Justice Science, which is where the OJJDP grants and the juvenile justice grants are housed now. These are not all of the subcommittees, but these are the ones I thought might have obvious youth development related stuff. If I missed any, I would love to hear it. But yeah, so this was just a quick kind of off the top of my head, some of those issues and programs that are funded under each of these subcommittees. Under Labor H, Title IV grants under the Department of Ed, community schools, which is sort of connected to that, 21st Century Community Learning Centers, the CNCF, which is part of the related agencies portion of the Labor H subcommittee, the Coalition for, the Corporation for National and Community Service, which funds national service, and AmeriCorps Vista, which I know a lot of our programs either support or benefit directly from. The Department of Defense, I actually have not been able to figure out if this is still funded by the federal government, but there is a mentoring/youth development program through the National Guard called the National Guard Youth Challenge. This was a huge priority for then Senator Landrieu. She carried the water on the federal investment in this. I was looking through the House DOD bill this morning and couldn't find it listed. So I don't know if it's no longer funded or if there's like an amorphous, funding pool that it might receive resources from. It may not just have a line item. TBD. But anyway, I remember that one off the top of my head. I know like the clubs and some other programs are doing stuff with DOD to support military dependents either on or off bases. I imagine there are some, 4-H. I was like, I imagine there's some stuff at Ag. I forgot about 4-H. Sorry, Nina, I apologize. So 4-H obviously was not intentional, I promise. Obviously, some important work there. Transportation HUD, I put a question mark behind it. I know HUD used to have some youth development specific programs. I actually don't know if they're still funding things or if any of you know. State, similarly, for instance, there is an ad hoc mentoring program at State. It's primarily a professional mentoring program. They mentor each other, but they've been inviting high school age students in as like an opportunity to expose them to federal employment. So it's not funded by any appropriations, but there's a program that exists at State. And then obviously the Commerce Justice Science subcommittee, the Youth Mentoring Grant, and the JJJPA related programs. Why don't we just start with, did I miss any obvious priorities for you guys? I don't have child nutrition on here. That's one, as I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah, and then since it's mandatory, it's not a pro.
Right.
And Youth Collab is a couple under, one under Labor H and one under THUD. We do quite a bit of work around youth homelessness, youth and young adult homelessness, and the Family and Youth Services Bureau over at HHS, Labor H, has the primary responsibility for basically emergency services. They run, RIE, Runaway and Homeless Youth programs, or if a child or young adult is unaccompanied. And then over at THUD, there's a sort of a complementary program, the Youth Homeless Demonstration Project, Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project, which is within the Community and Planning Development division over there. And that's more about a systemic, holistic response to youth homelessness. And there can be mentoring components to some of these programs. Obviously, there's some overlap in serve with the JJ groups, and child welfare, and so it's many of the same youth, but coming at it specifically from the runaway and homeless youth focus. Those are two very big priorities for us.
Awesome, thank you.
Which department at HHS did you say that first one is housing?
Sure, RAI, the Runaway and Homeless Youth Programs, are in the Family and Youth Services Bureau under the Administration for Children and Families. HHS,
And this is Kristen. They don't have a mentoring component now. And that actually used to be where the Mentoring Incarcerated Parents program used to sit, was in FSB, or under FSB, the Family and Service Bureau. But they do incorporate permanent connections, quote unquote, and the idea of supportive adult relationships. So we really work with them about like how we can define that a little bit more clearly around mentoring as well. And so some of our sub-grantees are folks that receive money to do that work with young people that are homeless, experience homelessness, and then they receive money from us to do mentoring with them.
That's awesome.
Those who remember MCP, it was FSB.
That's right.
So
Kristen mentioned it, but just for those of you who may not have heard, there used to be a competitive grant at HHS called the Mentoring Children of Incarcerated Parents Grant. It was funded, at least initially, through the George W. Bush administration. Was it still funded under Obama the first few years?
I think 2010. Yeah. So the first couple of years, and it was part of that larger presidential mentoring initiative. It was $15 million at DOJ and HHS.
Was part of Bush's an inauguration announcement. Big investment in mentoring. What else are we missing?
You've got SAMHSA up there, but drug prevention, there's a bunch of stuff under that one, but substance abuse prevention and treatment block grants, state opioid response, and state targeted response to opioids are all.
Awesome.
Or you just do drug prevention.
Getting to be a much bigger category, that's for sure.
We don't focus on it too much, but youth build and WIOA youth funds.
Oh yeah, I forgot youth build. That's crazy.
I guess that's in that subcategory, like still.
Another one that's mandatory, TANF.
Yep. Anything else?
Abby, and there's also it's the mentoring commercially sexually exploited children dollars, and that right now is not designated. It's kind of a mismatch of dollars out of OJJDP. Who else is on there? OVC, like it's a mess of dollars to put together. It's reconciled money, but it's an important one. So there's an RFP out there now. It's going to be funding 11 local organizations to do mentoring with young people that are specialized services and mentoring with young people that are victims or survivors of commercial sexual exploitation or at high risk.
That's awesome.
Under 18.
Yeah. I mean, for CJS, it's like opioid related to, but we invested how much pretty intense.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
And then I don't know how we're counting this. Oh, I guess you're saying JJDA.
Just broadly, but
okay.
Please call out specifics.
I was just going to say in the Title V Promise Grant, the 29 in the newly passed bill that was in December, and the 29 elaborated upon opportunities mentoring is specifically called out as allowable use should the local Promise Council determine that that's how they want to use their thing. So.
Okay. That's helpful.
Child care development block grants.
Another obvious one. So that's clubs and the Y for sure. Are any other programs on the table doing CDBG work? Okay. we missing anything else?
I was wondering if folks are doing anything with RECO, formerly REXO, or a DOL, Reentry Employment Opportunities Program.
Oh.
We are not currently. We have in the past. We haven't done anything in a couple of years. I don't know if we'll get to that later in the agenda of potential opportunities for us to consider places where mentoring might be applicable outside of the DOJ.
Is that adult focused or is it?
So it's got the strangest authorization I've ever seen. Co-authored by two different bills, and but it's basically a pilot and demo program at ETA. Typically, as reserved 20 million. But they have in recent years changed the eligible age from 14 to 18. But there's no clear authorization that like defines. It's just a pilot and demo program. So change it. So the recent iteration, but could and has been focused on that, and mentoring that along with other specific requirements case management, unemployment focus and safety, et cetera. So.
We're getting a little background noise on the phone, so if you're not speaking, if you could mute your line, I'd appreciate it. And I'll just remind everyone around the table to speak up so our folks on the phone can hear as well.
So Alana, just for reminding me about, so with Family First reauthorization, which as that goes into implementation, the Title 40 dollars, so this comes from the Social Security Act, Title 40, right, that's and I guess that's the same sort of mandatory, but states draw it down. States will have the opportunity to determine to determine what programs they're using to prevent kids, families from getting into the foster care system. And mentoring has been on allowable use in states that have waivers like California, so it's realistic.
Thank you. Hey guys, we're still getting some background noise on the phone. If you could mute yourself, please. Okay, this is good. Anything else we missed? I assumed I missed a bunch on Ed, but maybe not. I was just going off the top.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Oh, Perkins, I guess. I don't know if mentoring per se, but
Workforce for sure.
Almost just for your list, like I don't know how folks here intersect with Job Corps. You know, I know they're kind of like their own thing in a lot of ways, but it's a big one.
DOD, we partner, but that's an interesting, they have like a whole family youth services thing and funding goes to that. And then our partnership is actually through the military branches.
Gotcha.
But there is sort of a partnership under there.
Cool. This is a pretty exhaustive list here. And for those of you on the phone, I'm jotting down these programs. I'll be sure to share it afterwards. In fact, I think I left an empty slide in this deck, so I'll add it there and share the slide with you all.
Just
when we're done.
Brainstorm mode, SNAP Ed. I don't know if that's like in the Farm Bill,
yep.
Ag, wise use that for some programs. And then what's the stuff you do learn with the teen prevention? Is that?
Oh, yeah. It's an interesting one these days.
Yeah. We have a few wise doing it, but one of the sons that I sometimes, between us, I'm like, oh, I'm glad that doesn't bubble up because it seems so contentious every year, but it's like really complicated. I don't know where that's housed or where.
Any other girl-specific stuff that isn't captured here?
Yeah, I mean, like our whole focus has just been sexual harassment and prevention and then any child trauma stuff.
Like the EIR grants used to be the I3 grants.
Oh, yeah. Broad category would be any of the, to your point, any of the child sexual abuse prevention bills.
Oh, yeah. There's an update we can share on that, sort of.
Yes, sort of.
A really frustrating update.
And then for us, we have all the early learning stuff, but I don't know that it's
Okay, cool. Well, why don't we stop here? But I would say if any others just bubble up either in this conversation or the next day or two, just shoot me an email and we'll try to get an exhaustive list together. I think it's just useful to understand what all of our coalition partners are focusing on, whether it's an actual policy or funded program or just an issue that they're keeping an eye on. That's my interest in this for sure. And then figuring out maybe as we move forward here, forget what our next slide is. Oh, these are just for those of you not in the room, I just shared our sort of public legislative priorities lists, and none of these should surprise any of you. We've been promoting these for years. Although one announcement, if you didn't already know, last week, right? Last week or the week before, the Foster Youth Mentoring Act was introduced by Karen Bass and Don Bacon in the House, which is great, bipartisan bill. I think from my perspective, there are, where did I put my card? There are just some issues that I've been keeping my eye on. You know, I know at least around this table, the Y's been doing this work, you know, supporting efforts to protect the Johnson Amendment, right, which for those of you who don't know, the Johnson Amendment prohibits tax-exempt 501c3s from contributing to political action committees and endorsing candidates. There's an interest among some of removing that, so particularly churches and religious organizations can be more directly politically involved, which would basically make political donations tax exempt, which I think we all agree is a little weird. So anyway, that's certainly something Mentor supports, and I imagine a few of you around the table. One of the things I've been thinking about, and you know, any of these ideas I'm throwing out, I'm not suggesting should be part of the coalition work, but seems relevant to a lot of the work we do. Following efforts around lowering the voting age or making voter registration automatic. Those are two things I care a lot about and seem pretty relevant. Do any of you do any of that work now or supporting? I think Presley introduced a bill on lowering the voting age. I'm not sure if there's an automatic voter registration bill at the federal level yet. I'm not sure. Oh, sorry, Patricia, I just saw your thing. We got SNAP-Ed, thank you. And Tiffany said, oh, right, CIS is tracking bills on wraparound services and trauma-informed care and the Handle with Care Act. Sorry, just reading these out so I don't forget. Trauma-informed. Are any of you doing voter reg or voter age work right now?
We are, but more from a local and state perspective to federal. So we're working with a lot of our teen programs and our sciences to just encourage more civic engagement related activity. And partially as a way to help give youth more voice in what it is that their Ys are doing. So we're encouraging our Ys to take on voter reg initiatives with our teen programs. And similarly, we're encouraging Ys to do some more census. I think we're doing, I don't know, I can't speak to what Kelly's doing, right? She has a census toolkit that we're preparing.
Yeah.
We're talking to you guys about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Same way we're working with census folks over there.
Yeah.
But it kind of seemed like through like a civic engagement standpoint with youth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really great one. I hadn't thought about the census. That's a really, we're sort of like half in, half out on this right now, trying to get our affiliates to do similar work, to work with their local programs around civic engagement. And, you know, especially the role as a mentor can be a great example, setting an example on being civically engaged. But
it does seem to be a sort of like another, there are groups, I think like iCivics and others that are all around this idea of engagement, and they're DC policy folks. And I really don't know what they look at, but that's kind of who our colleagues have been partnering with, talking about those conversations.
Yeah, I had a really interesting conversation with someone from Citizens University. I think that's what they're called. A bunch of, I think, old Obama folks started that, doing similar-ish work. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Tiffany said she heard that Senator Harris is working on a chronic absenteeism bill. Thanks for sharing that. That is a great interest to mentor. I'm sure a bunch of organizations around this table.
Thought about too is we've been more engaged on some stuff like we were on Perkins, but STEM just as a category, I guess we put workforce up on the previous thing. Which kind of, yeah, there's been a few different STEM bills out there.
Yeah, I'm putting Adrienne on the spot. She's going to hate this. We are working on a briefing in the fall around, not necessarily STEM, but like, do you want to, I'm sorry, you can probably describe it better than I can.
Yeah, on workplace mentoring, and we're partnering with some of our technology-focused departments to have them present on some work that they're doing with mentoring with programs.
Yeah, so if any of you are interested, let us know. We'd love to. We're trying really hard to make it a mix of actual business representatives as well as like program examples of effective programming.
Definitely like to connect that info, guys, and we're actually working on doing a workforce briefing as well.
Okay.
Targeting the end of July. We might be ambitious, but highlighting some of the like community partnerships, folks working with local businesses in their communities. I think a similar.
Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, we decided to wait until the fall because we didn't think we'd be able to get it done effectively so soon, but that's awesome. We'd love to talk to you about that. Okay. Well, I mean, I think I'm gonna try to summarize this list. This is a really awesome list, and I mean, if there are any that we raised, maybe I should go back. Maybe that would help, so we can at least see some of those. If there are any that you think are the most obviously relevant to this coalition, please share out. I'll kind of star those so I can, I can indicate that when I share it out with a full coalition. I think, and maybe this is something to the steering committee, we can take a look at stuff that maybe we want to drill down or track a little more closely. But definitely want to hear from all of you on what issues, in addition to the OJJDP grant, you would love for this coalition to follow, track, or try to influence a little bit more.
What's relevant to DOJ right now? That sort of rise to the top in my mind. The drug prevention, mentoring around at drug prevention. I know they're really interested in the juvenile justice impacted youth right now. And that's another one that we've sort of been digging in with some of our clubs that are doing the more intervention-related work there. And then I think the workforce readiness piece, it ties so well with mentoring. Yep.
I think I've shared it previously, but YMG is a single pot, unauthorized, appropriate priority, somewhat. It's got good support and always has, or has for decades now. But to your point, I think mentoring can be applied in a lot of different areas across departments and across subcommittees. And I think if we were not just looking at what we are currently, our current priorities, but where else might we utilize mentoring as an effective component, add on, to whether it's workforce or if there's renewed interest around children of incarcerated parents or victims of trafficking. I think there are a lot of areas that we could look at as a group for where we could potentially infuse mentoring as a component to effective practices that are going on. So, just one place. So.
No, I agree. And actually that sort of reminds me, this group has met since I've had this conversation, so forgive me if this is repeating something for you all. I've had some interesting conversations with Lindsey Graham's office about, long story short, board member knows him pretty well, and he had just been named chairman of the judiciary and was very excited about the possibility of being able to influence something at Justice for us. And so I went in to talk to him and to the staffer and was like, look, I think there's a couple of ways we could tackle this. Every few years, we kind of discuss the idea of trying to make this an authorized program, there's risk and benefit associated with that. And he was like, yeah. I mean, he was still like, he had no opinion one way or the other, except that there could be a benefit to you guys. There could also be a really big risk to you guys authorizing that program. And for those of you who don't know, I apologize because I know some of you aren't policy folks. An authorized program is something that went through a general committee and was created in law, and then the appropriations bills fund it. Our program never became a law. It's just been funded. So it's sort of this ad hoc funding program. It has a line item in the appropriations bill, but no law kind of backing it up, which has worked out pretty well for us, to be honest. But anyway, it could also go away overnight, theoretically. He also was very, very interested, and I know I've talked to Youth Collaboratory about this, very interested in exploring something around mentoring children of incarcerated parents. And I think to your point, Paige, this sort of just is an intersection right now that folks in Congress and the administration are really interested in both that treatment, for lack of a better word, and prevention aspect of JJ impacted or at risk of becoming JJ involved young people. So anyway, nothing more than that. It was only been a conversation to this point, but we'll see what comes of that. But I think, Chris, you make a really good point that I know a lot of our programs have been doing that sort of based on their issues, or talking about like, don't forget the role of mentoring. But I think maybe as a coalition, we could do a little more deep dive and identify a few programs that maybe we could make an impact on, allowable uses and otherwise. Anything else? Sure, I haven't any notes from our folks on the screen.
I don't know what kind of like state outreach we have, but I think for us, Ellen and I work more on the federal side, but in those two buckets, family first, and then JJDPA reauthorization. It'll be interesting to see how states and localities determine how they're going to use in the foster space the prevention funds or as allowable use, and incorporating into the councils what's allowable. And I know that kind of gets in, from an advocacy standpoint, we're probably, it's a hard, I know everyone's walked this tightrope before, but it's a hard thing to say that the best way to keep kids out of, it's hard to prioritize which programs might keep children or families out of entering, child welfare systems, right? So you don't want to but it'll just be interesting that we're definitely monitoring, and our states are looking at the Ys who are involved in the state alliance level, then also the local level could very well be involved, like been involved in the SAGs and so involved in other ways to incorporate mentoring. So we're keeping an eye on that, but I don't know if this group, because we're kind of federal.
Fostering youth, though, I think is a good, because it is kind of mentoring when you're talking about the prevention side. Good piece of it, right? Because it's not something we worked on before the reauthorization changed it and makes it more relevant for groups like us, right? And we actually had one of our clubs approached from the Department of Health and Human Services in the state about it, which is always great when they go to them.
Yeah.
And so that we're trying to figure out how that works. But just as like a raising awareness for folks, that might be a good one.
Yeah.
Since it is new and different.
Totally. And it's still like, there's a slow roll on which programs are going to be part of this federal clearinghouse. So it's like, it's sort of unclear. And then there's the X amount of programs need to be evidence-based versus, well, and then where the, to determine where they enter out or not.
Cool. Anything else? Put an asterisk there.
Native youth.
Ooh, good one. Good one, good
one. So this isn't an issue area, but things that come up, regulatory issues that come up, like proposed public charge changes, to the extent that there are connection points to any of these priorities that our organizations are focusing on.
That would be great. And maybe we can just start by saying when you guys are submitting feedback, and it would be helpful for your programmatic colleagues to share as well, to the extent it's, comfortable for you guys to share your proposed language. I could circulate it around. I think that could, so often just the number of people submitting comments is important as what's actually being said.
And then I think things like public charge kind of lend themselves to the conversations around equity and access just in general, like who's going to feel comfortable accessing particular programs. I mean, even, those of us that are after-school providers have seen a decrease in families that are signing their kids up for programs because they don't want to put themselves on the map for. But just as an example,
yeah.
Right? I mean, these are regulatory policy proposals, but they're going to have a deeper impact than. Anyway.
Yeah. Is there anything at Rexham Park? I mean, I know you're new, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but is there anything you think hasn't been captured in some way?
No, I think you've really captured most of what I came in here wanting to talk about.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess maybe before we move off policy stuff, just do a quick CPIA update. I'll share my 2 cents and let Elena fill in any extra. So I think a lot of you know the Child Protection Improvements Act was signed into law in March of 2018. And the statute, for those of you who don't know, the Child Protection Improvements Act is a law to make access to FBI fingerprint background checks universally available to any youth-serving organization or any organization serving kids, individuals with disabilities, and the elderly, giving them universal access to FBI fingerprint background checks if they want to use them as part of their screening practices. Only about a third of states don't currently have access to FBI fingerprint checks, so they either skip the step or have to find usually a for-profit provider to get them access. So CPIA was signed into law, which is great. I think almost all of your organizations around the table and on the phone supported it. The statute gave them until March of 2019 to stand up the law, the program that has come and gone. So we have a couple of roadblocks. I will tell you my 2 cents is that this is really being caught up sort of in a political morass right now. So CPIA is supposed to be self-funding, so there was no appropriation for it. The idea is the FBI would stand up this program, likely hire an entity to run this program, and if it costs $12 per check, that would be invoiced to the organization requesting that. So it theoretically is self-funding. So I think the funding thing is what FBI often fell back on their concerns. But right now, I think what is happening is that the only member of Congress who was a sponsor of CPIA that is still in Congress is Adam Schiff. And Adam Schiff has been having a lot of very political, very charged and public conversations with the Department of Justice. He and his staff have been wonderful in trying to keep this on the top of mind at DOJ. But the response, when they get a response, the response they get is, we're looking into it. So that's about as much as we know. I mean,
and DOJ hasn't given any kind of timeline?
Nope. So, go ahead.
Schiff has sent a couple of letters to DOJ, and the last letter he sent was, what is your timeline for the public comment period, which is statutory language to go through rulemaking to see feedback from organizations as to the criterion offenses that should be considered in making determinations. Mm-hmm. And so I don't even know if DOJ has provided a response yet, but his primary question is, what is your timeline for public comment, and what is your timeline for? They haven't provided a response yet, so.
Yeah.
But they're just very, the letters are very like, yep, we know. Thank you.
We're getting
zero detail.
Yeah.
This is helpful. It makes me feel better because I had tried to look a couple of times and I'm like, where is that?
Yeah. It's nowhere. It's nowhere.
It's nowhere.
So I think related though to that point, I think our next step, and Schiff's office agrees this makes a lot of sense, is having an outside organization support letter just to the Attorney General saying this is such an important priority for us. We hope that you issue these public comments soon and get this program rolling. So stay tuned. You'll be hearing from us about that. Hopefully your organizations can help us with that. So yeah.
What is like the consequence of an agency not like slow rolling? I genuinely don't know.
Well, I mean, slow rolling is exactly what's happening here. I mean, look, I think under most Congresses, they would be pretty teed off that DOJ is just ignoring them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like DC does with a lot of different things that are supposed to be implemented, but they'll put out new deadlines. Like that's sort of the thing that is like, okay, now we're looking at September.
Officially.
Now we're looking at
Yeah. They're just
COL, right?
Yeah.
But this isn't even that, right? This is just like they're not doing it. So can you just not do it?
I mean, you can sue.
Yeah.
You can litigate it, or Congress can take punitive action.
Okay.
But, Adam Schiff seems to have some other things going on right now. He's taking punitive action against the Department of Justice, and they're ignoring those too.
Yeah. So I think our hope is that polite external pressure helps kind of unstick it. But remains to be seen. So I think we have a few steps we would like to take before we try to dial up the pressure. I gotta tell you, some days I would just love some other entity, none of us, because all of us have to continue to do this work. But I would just love someone to connect those dots, like some op-ed article to be written about this completely bipartisan, bicameral bill.
Is there any other safety that would be a good one to they're watching it? I mean, I don't know who that would be.
I don't know. I mean, NCMEC wouldn't do it because they're so closely tied with DOJ, but they would be an interesting one, right? But
the thing that goes around that is always in the back of my mind is the fact that this administration, the administration has allowed HHS to waive background check requirements for the kids in the migrant detention centers, right? So the backgrounds, they're not really. I have to remember that those kinds of things, right? I don't know. To your point.
Like an AARP or something, would they be interested?
That's interesting.
Just because of the senior side of it.
Right. I don't know.
Have you talked with Jerry Moran's staff about maybe report language and maybe coming from a Republican chairman saying this is important?
We have not, but that's a really fantastic idea.
It is.
It's a great idea. See, this is why we share.
Everything is approached.
No, yeah, but
that's a great place to go.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually some pressure there. I think we haven't heard back from Schiff's office, but one of the things his staffer shared with us was that they were going to have an internal conversation about whether it made sense to do another congressional dear colleague, and I think the idea was try to make that bipartisan. But I like that idea a lot, Chris. That is definitely something.
And say with the other groups, I think by Brianna is even though this is for all youth, individuals with disabilities, it's really a big space.
Yeah.
Hard for I think there will be a role for us to engage them in the comment.
For sure.
It's just hard to imagine that AARP is only peripherally aware of.
Yeah, just thinking if we did send a letter or something, or they might be a group that'd be willing to do that, or even if they do their own letter, just because since they're they're sort of the overall protections for seniors, right? Making sure that folks were, had more access at senior service facilities for background checks. Seems like it was, I don't know. I don't know. I might be.
I would assume that they take their background checks seriously. They do background checks for all of their volunteers. I don't know. We should. It's an avenue.
They must care enough to get it in the law, right?
What's that?
They cared enough to get it in the law, right? It wasn't drafted that way.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Right. It was Paul Ryan's office who got it done for us, got it across the finish line.
Like they engaged enough.
Yeah.
Religious groups.
That's a good point. All right. Thank you, guys. Any more of these ideas? Shoot Elena or I our emails. We're trying to unstick this right now. All righty. So just to try to, I'm not even paying attention to the calendar. Yeah, I've got to move along on the agenda here. I will fill out those issues we discussed here when I share so that everyone on the call gets this list. So the National Orgs meeting at the summit theoretically is something that's shared between Adrienne and me and our marketing and programmatic colleagues, but for the last few years has primarily been a policy and advocacy driven conversation. So I say that only because if there are issues or speakers or topics that you guys would love to hear during that meeting as kind of a group, please don't feel like it has to be policy or advocacy focused. I'm looking for an exhaustive list right now. But before maybe we get into specifically what we've done in the past during that meeting, just wanted to flag for you guys some distinction. About half of you around this table serve as supporting partners for the National Mentoring Summit. It's at sponsorship level. I think you guys get 2 comped registration tickets. You get an invitation to our board dinner at the Library of Congress and an invitation to this meeting, although I always open it up and let everyone who's in town come to this meeting. Anyway, so I think you guys will actually be hearing about the supporting partners invitations earlier this year than in the past. We're hoping to get some commitments from folks so that their logos are part of all of our communications, because we want you guys to, if you're interested in being associated with the event, we want you to be associated throughout. So just keep an eye out for emails from us on that. So like I said, in the past, we've done congressional panels. Who did we have 2 years ago? The congressional offices, the staff from Blumenthal,
Durbin, and then where we had Murphy's office.
There you go. So we've had 3 congressional staff in the last 2 or 3 years. We've had agency panels just this last year. Ian Antel from OJJP and Chester Spellman from CNCS. He's the director of AmeriCorps Vista. Spoke last year. A few years ago, even before I started, Fatah, who, for those of you who have been following this policy issue for long, know that he sort of was the champion for the youth mentoring grant until he left Congress. So anyway, he came in
serving the public
in a way, in a fashion. For those of you who don't know, Fatah is in prison right now. Not because of his work first. Thank goodness. Anyway, he kind of came, and I think, you know, the way David has explained that conversation to me in the past, he was really trying to get the coalition to work more cohesively to be more effective in advocating for funding. I think we are much more cohesive, so hopefully we've achieved his goals. But anyway, that was sort of the impetus there. Are there any people or topics or issues that you guys would love to tackle as a group if we could find speakers? I don't know.
Might be a good way to engage. Who's the no on the House side? The chair, Adderholt, is that right?
Oh, that's the Republican. Yep.
Yeah.
And Serrano.
Ranking that chair. Sorry.
Yeah.
But since he's newer as a lead there, that might be a good. So you could see all the group.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other ideas?
Is there anyone that people have been thinking about? I know as we thought about who's going to be the new champion kind of thing, do we have any possibilities that would be an opportunity to engage them early on about this as champions taking over?
That's a great question, Kristen. I don't know. I mean, I think that my answer to that would change by the month. I don't know. Does anyone else feel like there is a single source?
Later on today, tomorrow, so I'll make a point to get through tonight.
That's interesting. I think for those of you, I was very, very concerned that we would have a challenge getting increased funding, let alone protected funding, out of the House, just because I thought particularly JJ bills would kind of suck up some of those dollars, and with the extra pressure of census funding, I really thought the House would be our biggest challenge this year. I was proven wrong. Obviously, they came out with a pretty respectable funding recommendation, which is fantastic. So we'll see what the Senate is. Anyway, my point to that was I really thought they were going to be our problem this year. And if they came in at a lower number, I thought we were pretty screwed, because it's usually the Senate that we have to work them up, not Anyway, so
anything?
yeah.
Side, we haven't gotten anything.
Nothing. Yeah, I can't. I mean, the response I get from Jennifer all the time is, "I got your letter. We're good." Right? Like, yeah. Leahy's staffer, her name just went right out of my head, sent me an email 2 weeks ago and just said, "Have you guys heard from anyone on CJS?" I said no. So I think her hope is to follow up, but I haven't heard back from her. So I'm glad we're not alone. That's at least helpful. Have you guys heard anything about the Senate timing? I heard, I think a week or two ago that the chairman was sort of like, well, maybe we're not going to wait for budgets now. Maybe we need to start moving forward. But that's as close as as specific as I've heard.
So I don't know. I had a meeting and I was asking about it, and they had said that they were going to try to move, and they were like, we'd love to get it done by the end of June, and they were like, but we realized that is probably super ambitious.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. Well, I guess if they do like level funding, they could, right?
I think everything is not going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
That had been put out there.
That's funny. Yeah, I think in Politico or Roll Call or something, I read something. The chairman said, yeah, maybe we're not going to wait for the budget after all. Because I think the writing's on the wall for that.
I've heard staff are trying to do some writing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That there are ongoing conversations between Senate leadership and the White House about whether they should do a proposal.
Oh, interesting. Just wait and do like a year long or something.
Well, because they had so much fun with the shutdown last time. They're trying to figure out how to manage the
it was great
end of
fun.
the fiscal year and the debt ceiling and the sort of lack of budget resolution. And is there a political advantage to the House having moved bills and being big spenders? It's this sort of macro level, and leadership is telling the committees not to move anything. So I think staff are beginning to write. Yeah. But I don't.
They have.
I can't. Somebody who talked to said they're not even sure there's a markup before August.
Wow.
We're a few of us were in a meeting with this is actually 2 weeks back, so I know this is the kind of time where the actual weeks do matter, but we met with the staff director for Senator Shelby, and some of the things she said, like the same things that Peter's saying, like, we're going to stick with the Shelby-Leahy agreement where it's no riders, no authorizing language. We don't want to mark up a number that's too high or too low. Labor H is going to be paired with defense again. That's good. Their goal. And talks are ongoing, right? Lots of that, like, we remain hopeful about the caps, but we want to do this right, not quickly. Type.
Okay.
Sure, right?
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Interesting. I just hope we're not looking at a year-long CR again. That would stink. But it's good. I was really glad to hear they want to continue doing DOD and Labor H together.
Yeah, but it's an unspoken thing. It's just the Trump factor in your life.
Every day is a new day over there.
Yeah, like, how do you know? He was like, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I'm not signing this bill again.
Well, because that's how we went into the shutdown. There was a congressional agreement.
Yeah.
Right. And he blew it up. Right?
But I know the idea, because what's with the minibus on the House side? Is it going this week or did go yesterday? I don't know.
This week and next week.
I think 6.
It's Labor Age, Defense, Energy and Water, Ledge Branch.
I think Ledge Branch got pulled.
Ledge Branch is
because of the
pulled, but it's not. Like, they're like not debating that part right now.
Oh.
But they're trying to figure out how to bring that one back because it's in the base text. And
the issue there is around salaries, right?
The congressional pay.
Salaries, yeah.
And I think state in there too. I don't know. It's they weren't planning on completing that bill this week. I think that was going to bleed into next week because I think they had multiple rules. There were 175 amendments that haven't read them yet. So
that's actually a pretty short list considering the depth of those bills. Those pure.
Well, rules was winnowing it down. They're not. It's not.
Right. Thank goodness. Good Lord.
Yeah.
We would never get.
They would be filibustered by then.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I'm happy just kind of looping back with just to echo Sage's comment before about I think, it's always a challenge. We look at your list of bills to get on Republicans, just to get the Republican there. And I think we can capitalize on like the momentum of Mentoring Summit is so big
Mm-hmm.
that it's like, it would just be cool whether it would be a Republican member of Congress or frankly their Republican staffer. To just be like, oh wow, there's a lot of people here. They're really into it. They're really energetic. Like, so I think there would be that sort of secondary benefit of just getting some people who are maybe on the fence a little bit more just there.
Yeah.
And if that getting them there means having them come talk to us, like Congressman Adderholt, whoever,
Yeah.
I think there would be a benefit to that.
Okay.
I don't know that I particularly care to like, but maybe I would like to hear like their insights of like how they're approaching mentoring.
I agree. I think mentoring is such an interesting issue for these folks too. It's like no one opposes it. The issue really just comes down to dollars, right?
Yeah.
So getting them on the record talking about how much they care about clubs and whys in their district,
Yeah.
good stuff for us. It's helpful.
Abby, do you have youth at your conference?
Not a lot. I think we're trying to change that, but it's not a huge number. Why do you ask?
I'm just wondering if there's something there to
Mm-hmm.
that we can do to. I mean, if we're going to have Hill staff, potentially have Hill staffers, like would it benefit the Hill staffers to hear from you? Like at an open.
That's an interesting idea.
Like, do they come to the partner meeting with
Right.
us where it's? I don't know. I was just wondering, but I didn't know how many or who they were.
Do you think that would be something, if we would try to replicate sort of like the Women's History Month reception where, your local programs kind of tapped, 5 young people to come? We could do this and then maybe like
I'll say the challenge, it's in the school year.
True, right. And Thursday is when it's currently earmarked for. Yeah, that's tough.
Not that
No, I hear you though.
but it's more challenging.
Right, for sure. Okay, that's something to think about though. That's interesting. Okay.
Unless there's a way to use technology to
Do something.
Yeah.
I guess your conference was later. I mean, if it was, we brought it, well, I guess I would be bringing like local kids, but if we did something like
In the evening?
yeah, late
maybe
afternoon.
It doesn't have, what if it's like frontline staff, young frontline staff, youth workers?
Oh, yeah.
Then it's
Yeah.
easier. I mean, we're pulling them out of programming, whatever, but that's another angle,
Yeah.
right? Because they have the perspective of as a deliverer of programming and someone who works directly with kids.
Yeah. And I'm sure you guys have the same. We have a lot of former club kids that go on to be yeah.
So I don't know, just something, I don't know. I mean,
That's something to chew on. I like it.
is that something that Hill staffers will respond to in a different way than hearing from
Good
us?
question. Yeah.
Is it a way to maybe hold them a little bit more accountable for what they say to us in front of us?
Would it change
I don't know.
anyone's ability or interest in attending national orgs if we got a place on the Hill? Because right now we just have it at the hotel. Is it a huge pain in the butt?
I mean, we usually go either way.
Yeah, I
we
do
go
go
either way.
either way.
Right.
So you're saying like to do the meeting, you would like go up on the Hill to do it?
Yeah, I mean, if Adderholt
I like it
could
better.
come,
I like it
yeah,
better conference, actually.
it might be easier to get him to actually, even if it's just a drop-in for a few minutes.
If they'll go, yeah, that'll make
Right. And then, right, I feel like that's something for the young people to do if we would go that direction, to be on the Hill. All right, that's something to think about. Cool. Any other, topics? Or any?
The juvenile justice impacted youth, just because it's such a popular topic among both the agencies and on the Hill right now. I don't know.
Yep.
To figure out that, just
Okay.
Abby, last year, you guys released like a one-pager with talking points. It was like mentoring and, was it substance abuse? What was it? Mentoring
Oh, yeah. What was that? Was it on the OGA piece, or the opioid stuff? Yeah. Yes. We may have called it substance abuse instead of
Yeah, I don't
opioids,
remember.
but
To the extent that you can do those one-pagers on like mentoring in after school or mentoring in early learning or mentoring in whatever the thing in mentoring in STEM and mentoring in, I think would be helpful. And helping external audiences understand how all of these pieces are intersect, right? That when we're talking about mentoring, we're not just talking about mentoring for the sake of talking about mentoring. We're talking about mentoring in the after school space. We're talking about, mentoring, which means partnerships. We're talking, so I don't know, I think it might be helpful.
I like it.
I can't speak for others at the table, but I think it would be useful.
Oh, I like it.
Even just to push stuff like that out to our guys.
Yeah. Well, and I think the value of those, I think what you're referring to last year really was just like 5 bullet points on the relation of mentoring work and substance abuse or opioids. I forget if we got specific, but I think I would love to do that on one page, on the other spotlight 2 or 3 examples of those in real life, so we could work with all of you to kind of hold up some of the work you guys are doing at the local level. I think that would be great. Cool. Anything else? Okay. All right, awesome. Thank you for helping us think through that. Make that worthwhile. So I just had, real quickly, I mean, I think you all know this. So we got the House appropriation was approved by the subcommittee and the full appropriations committee for the OJDP grant at $100 million. We publicly requested 120. I don't think any of us is going to complain if we walk away with 100. That would be a $4 million increase over current funding, which is great. I'm sorry, $5 million. I can count, I promise. And the White House number, for those of you who haven't been following this for a while, $58 million is what every president has requested for the last 10 years, I think. So while we still don't like it, it's not new to this administration. So that's where we are. And I think I always like that top chart just because I think it shows that we really have been pretty steady, which is fortunate, and I think an indication of both the work and the interest in this bill. So this is just a list of the Senate CJS subcommittee members, Republicans on the left of your screen, Democrats on the right, Jerry Moran as the chair and Jean Shaheen as ranking member. Jerry Moran was new to this subcommittee as a chairman last year, I think, right, mid-session, right? There was a switch mid-session. So this is his first full term as a chairman on that subcommittee. So I just put it up here as a reminder. Any of you who has programs in these states, it would be great if you guys could reach out to those offices and just connect on the grant.
Can I ask a quick question on the previous chart, the 1 year that went down? Sorry, I was just thinking about this. How did it go down the 1 year? What sequestration?
17?
That was sequestration, right?
No, yeah, sequestration was actually, I think, 12.
Oh, wow, man, I'm really confusing myself.
Why was that? I think we just got screwed. I think it was like multiple CRs, and I think they just kept shaving, I think.
Okay.
Is that what it was? Yeah. I think it was just like a multiple CR year, and Fatah was gone, and we had no one at the table just saying, like, let's keep this one.
Sorry,
but
I was trying to think about that.
No. But I think like our response to that as a coalition the next year, I think helped us get that increased number. So it stunk for that year, especially for all of you applying for the direct service grants. But I think it turned a good leaf for us. We made a good turn for that, whatever the expression is.
And it's my recollection that sequestration was 13.
Is it 13? I would think it was 12.
We ended up with 90 because there was didn't they transfer 20 or 25 million from DOD to DOJ? There was an odd fix that happened.
That's funny. I'd have to look into that.
I always try to keep track of because it was a year where we were going to get cut, and they pulled a maneuver to keep YMG mostly whole. My recollection.
That is news to me. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. Institutional knowledge is a good thing.
It was so odd that I always remembered if it goes down again, DOD always has money. So,
20 million. That's fascinating. Okay.
That's my recollection. It was 13, but
I like it. All right. So yeah, sorry. So chair and ranking member, and then I have the House Tier 2. They're less important right now, although obviously once we get to CRs and omnibus and whatever it is, we'll probably have to circle back with House CJS, at least the leadership, if no one else. And that's Serrano. Serrano will finish this Congress, and then he's retiring. So this will be his last year as subcommittee chair. So, So before we get on to opening it up just for partners to share whatever they want, just an FYI, Adrienne, do you want to talk a little bit about Advocacy August?
Sure. Some of you might be engaged in our monthly mentoring themes. We highlight and elevate different issues. This month, for instance, we're elevating Pride Month, and in July, we're elevating youth voices. In August, we celebrate advocacy, and so we put out a toolkit for our grassroots advocates, but we love to get either graphics or blog posts or anything that you basically would like to write about your own advocacy when it comes to mentoring youth development. So if you have anything that you want to share about your best practices or good case studies, please send them to me, and we're happy to use them and talk to you more about that afterwards as well.
And for those of you who don't have toolkits and stuff, we'd be happy to share ours. You can repurpose it and put your logos on it. We don't care. And then, so I just threw on the second bullet. I was just curious if any of you are doing any purposeful engagement of candidates. Obviously, since we're all nonprofits, it would be on a bipartisan basis. But just curious if any of you guys are doing that at the local level, encouraging them to come to your sites, or if there's anything intentional around leading up to 2020. If any of you guys are doing that.
We're doing a campaign to engage folks, but we created a toolkit on electioneering for our club. Yeah, guide them on what was done.
This is what you can do. This is what you
Ditto, we have one as well, but so we're not actively encouraging outreach.
Right. We're hoping to sort of flipping it on our head. Obviously, we don't have locals, but trying to feed directly to campaigns, and again, on a bipartisan basis, elevating mentoring is something, especially on your youth platform, right? And just giving them talking points and the ways that, even from local governments all the way up to federal government, how they can, issues they can champion or things they could put in place, specific priorities or goals. So we're hoping to roll that out in the next few months. I think that's a priority for me this summer. Happy to share that with you guys if you're interested. And yeah, I mean, I think so. Thank you for the idea on the one-pagers. I'll get to work on that this summer. But if there's anything else you would love from us that would be helpful just in your kind of day-to-day work, I know some of us have policy and advocacy staff, most of you are around the table, but not everyone on the phone, and certainly not the whole coalition do. So if there's anything we can do to make it a little easier for you guys, please let me know. And we're happy to share our stuff and let you guys put your logos on it and take credit for it, because I don't see any reason to reinvent the wheel.
Can I steal your funding chart?
Yes, I will send that to you. So yeah, I mean, I would just love to hear anything you guys want to share about stuff you're working on or things you have coming. You guys have a new ED, right?
Yeah.
Is it official? Is she brand new?
Brand new from the Woodrow Wilson, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah. CEO just started, so we all met with her last week at a retreat.
Exciting.
But she's
Girls Inc. speaking. Sorry for those of you on the phone.
She's really ready to get involved in more advocacy.
That's awesome. Yay, good for you guys.
Otherwise, we're just working on our Girls Too campaign, pushing that forward. And then next month, we're bringing our Teen Advocacy Council to DC, which is a group of like 10 girls around the country, and we'll take them to the Hill and do just a bunch of events in DC with them, do some trainings with some partner orgs. All that.
We should, when you guys are done that, Adrienne and I should come and sit and learn from you guys. We think we're going to get funded for a year-long advocacy program for youth. Yeah, just so.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we think. It's not official yet. We're close, but I don't want to jinx it. I think a lot of it there'll be like 2 in-person things, like a kickoff and a kind of wrap-up, but most of it will just be learning virtually.
Yeah, but Sonia does a lot of the Zoom calls with the girls. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, we're going to come learn from you guys. Anything else you guys are working on you want to share? Reports or events or?
There's 2 briefings we're working on. I mentioned the workforce one already, but the other one is we're working on a Native drug prevention briefing with Aspen Institute, with their Center for Native American Youth. But that one is actually targeted for July, same as our workforce one, but they're both, the dates are very soft right now.
I hear you. Okay, cool.
I would just share for groups that aren't in these other conversations around, and I don't know where this freaks it may be, we didn't mention it earlier for the list, but a lot of us are working around the trauma-informed care, and there's a lot of coalescing around, whether it's supporting Senators Durbin and Representative Davis and their partners on those bills, or working with the Oversight Government Reform Committee to look at federal programs, kind of exciting things bubbling up, and they have a hearing coming up July 16th and 17th, a roundtable for survivors of trauma, and then a committee hearing, congressional hearing, where to talk about trauma and trauma-informed approaches.
Nice. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone on the phone have anything they want to share? Your groups are working on?
Abby, I think this is Kristen. I think I just chime in on, I would love to continue that conversation about youth advocates, young people with lived experience advocating. So we're doing some work on that too. So I think there's been an opportunity for us to share what we're doing and how we're doing it across the board. And then maybe that's one of those topics we can kind of revisit too, is I think more and more organizations on both the advocacy and the leadership levels in policy are really looking at what is authentic and real youth engagement. What does that look like, especially with young people with lived experience? So it might be an opportunity there. So we're doing a lot of work in that. We have a Youth Catalyst team. They're hired. We actually hire them as consultants, and they work with agencies around the country to provide training and technical assistance and support, leveraging their experience to provide that support, but not telling stories. So if anybody does want to have a young person as a consultant, let me know. But otherwise, I think just being able to share those learnings across the board would be awesome.
That sounds great. I'm game for that for sure. Yeah, I think that would be great. Relevant to a lot of people. Anyone else want to share out? Go ahead.
Sorry. I have the mic still. The other thing I heard earlier, I just wanted to test the room, was we was talking about like regulations and rules and like making comments. And I guess I had not really thought about accessing this group around things that may have common interests. And like we have a stance, we're going to make comments on the equal access rule for housing. Like there'll be certain things that we think are important. I don't know, is this a venue to share that so people that have interest and want to make comment as well have access to it? Are we considering how we coalesce around other things? So maybe that's just a question for the group. Take a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say, like, I have no problem passing along information, just say from, one of the coalition members, for those of you who this is, of interest. I'd be happy to do that. And then maybe at future conversations, or maybe a steering committee conversation could be like, are there a handful of issues that we want to ask coalition members to really actually make an ask of the coalition to submit comments or something like that on specific issues? Cool. Great.
All right,
anyone else? Thank you, Kristen. Anything else? All right. Well, I put up the future dates slide just so people know. We have a call scheduled on September 23rd and December 9th. The next in-person gathering is at the summit. For those of you who attend the actual summit, and then, of course, for those of you in the DC area, you're welcome to attend the National Orgs meeting. Thank you for helping us think about what we might do to fill up that time. And yeah, I guess that's everything. Thanks so much for coming. Appreciate it, everyone. And thanks for everyone on the phone. I recorded today's conversation. I'll share the link with the full coalition, just for those who couldn't make it. But if you guys have anything you want to share with the coalition, links to resources or events or whatever, send those to me in the next 24 hours, and I'll include them in the email out to the full coalition. All right, and please, for those of you here, help yourselves to seconds.
Yeah, did that already.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And we're